sense. Let's make a sense of what this budget means, because like I said, that budget is the template in which the government will run the affairs of the nation. This is a very final one, the 8th budget of the Buhari administration. I'm being joined by Professor of Political Economics, Professor Utomi, and one of the leaders of the Big Ten. Thank you so much, Prof, for coming tonight.
Great pleasure.
Not so much time we have on our hands, but look, budget is very important in the lives of, this is basically a picture. You take a picture, it's the way you look in the picture that, I mean, that you can deceive yourself. The picture is perhaps, or the budget of Nigeria is perhaps the way Nigeria is presently, has been projected by the government. This is the last budget of the Buhari administration. What, in your own view, does this budget hope to achieve, or what do you see in this budget generally? You know, I know you are not a fan of the budget of Nigeria.
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up quickly.
I'm trying to ask you about budgets.
I've avoided talking about budgets in Nigeria.
Annoy you.
They annoy me. Because, I mean, look at what we have just heard today. What is the goal of the Buhari administration? It says it wants to create 10 million jobs in, what, 10 years or something?
Yeah.
This budget will create one job? No.
100 million jobs in 10 years.
This will lead to loss of jobs. It will lead to massive inflation. It will lead to a collapse of the exchange rate. Let me explain why. It's very simple. This is a budget of debt service. Okay? You're going to have revenues of what? 9 trillion? Mm-hmm. You're projecting expenditure of what? 21 trillion?
Yeah.
You're already in an unsustainable debt situation. Tell me anybody who understands economics what this means. This is going to mean serious inflation. Okay? This is going to mean, if you were in a situation where people are rushing to invest in Nigeria, you would say, okay, revenues that flow in would accelerate production. And when you ask people who manage the economy, they say to you, you see, the problem is not that our debt situation is unsustainable. The problem is that of collecting revenues. There's revenue problem. Look, there's a gentleman called Arthur Laffer. Arthur Laffer, the professor at USC when Reagan became president of the United States. His thesis, supply-side economics, became the mantra of that era. Interestingly, and we forget this, that's the problem of Nigeria, because Nigeria has fine minds that Nigeria refuses to get to apply. The equation that cracked the problem for Arthur Laffer, Arthur Laffer, yeah, and led to the so-called Laffer curve about optimal tax rates, was cracked by a Nigerian student of his, Omoche Odogu, back in the 70s. And that thesis essentially says to you, there's an optimal rate of trying to collect taxes and people don't invest. Nigeria already suffers from a problem where in 2019, I think it was May 28th article of Forbes magazine, Nigeria was described as Africa's money-losing machine. Africa's money-losing machine. Typically, nobody wanted to go to Nigeria to invest. Money has been leaving Nigeria rather than coming in. So, are you going to get new money coming? When India got into the unsustainable kind of situation with just 3 weeks' money in its reserves in 1991, what happened? A sea change of policies with Manmohan Singh led to new flood of investments. That's not quite happening yet in Nigeria.
Prof, I mean, merging history and political economics and all of these manner in which government have been drawn over the last 20 years or so, when we know that there is a way that things have gone, can you blame the Buhari government for the economic woes we're facing presently?
Yeah, absolutely, I can blame the Buhari government.
That whatever they've done in the last 8 years has not worked?
Absolutely. Let me tell you why I will. The biggest challenge in the Nigerian economy is ways and means advances from Central Bank of Nigeria. At this point, it is 1,900 or 2,900% in printed money from the central bank without equivalent value.
Is it correct to say they've been printing money out
absolutely.
of the usual?
Our Fiscal Responsibility Act
sorry, Prof.
makes it an offense to do what has been done.
Just a moment.
Yes.
Just apologies to because I've heard a lot of debate about the issue of printing money. When Governor Obaseki mentioned this, a lot of people criticize him. That saying that government was printing or CBN was printing money in a manner that was unusual, was wrong. But if you as notable as you are in your field, you're repeating that.
Obaseki was not wrong.
And I hope that you're not saying this because you are in the opposition.
Hey, look, come on. We have one country. Doesn't matter what flag you fly, it is Nigeria. And we want to build a country for our children. I am one of those who say that opposition leaders, when they say things that lead to a run on the economy, do grave damage to themselves. There is a certain parameter that we must stay within. But we have to stop. The problem I have is with the civil service. And this is why we started with a program on how to rebuild the civil service. A civil service that knows what it's doing will not allow the kind of budget that was read to be read. Because you see, when General Govt reached an accord in Aburi and came back, the quality of the civil service of that time said to him, you're the political leader. That was a wrong move for Nigeria. Civil servants who know if they do know, and there's a capacity problem today in the civil service. And our first job, anybody wants to fix the country, to begin to fix the civil service. Says to them, don't read this kind of budget. When we started out in this administration, nobody was managing fiscal policy. That's the truth of the matter. Central bank suddenly went from managing monetary policy to managing both monetary policy and fiscal policy. And it went overboard. In the process, it could not now tell its own limits. And Ways and Means advances in the name of shoring up economic activity became just a routine, violating fiscal responsibility laws. And this is payback time, unfortunately, for the economy. But thank God that we have the example of India to show that it's possible to stop this. But the first thing is that the international community have to see managers that they can trust at the helm. Once they see managers they can trust at the helm, there are things that can happen that will lead to a checking of the slide.
Prof, two things that we need to clear.
Yes.
And I'd like you to help me hit it on the nail and let Nigerians get the perspective. My viewers are not the usual figure of view. I mean, they like to listen to politics. That's why they tune in. Now, Ways and Means, you mentioned something that was critical, which the National Assembly members disagree on the floor about. They said, look, these monies have also been spent anyways, but there isn't anything wrong with Ways and Means, is it?
It depends on the extent to which you do it, because it has consequence.
So what was wrong with this one?
Now, if you continue to generate or to create money without creating value, the consequence is inflation. And exchange rate will be collapsing, and you just multiply. I can tell you, God forbid, if we don't do something dramatic, the effect of this budget is that exchange rate will go past 1,000. That is a direct effect of this budget. You are going to see inflation probably go up to 50% from what was read today, if some new dramatic things were not made. Because if we had a rush of investments, local and foreign, it would be an interesting thing, because the money is coming in would lead to investments that will create new value that can lead to both exports and a new set of jobs being created. But we're still in a net loss situation. Money is still leaving Nigeria because of lack of trust of the management of the economy. So if you're in that kind of position, this is tragic. If you're in a position where people will say, okay, it's time for a rebirth in Nigeria. I'll give you an example. In 1998, I was involved in a advisory dialogue with General Obasanjo, who was then running for president. And I said, look, we need to essentially increase wages of civil servants significantly if we have to create money to do that. Because as we do that, and they begin to consume, Liver Brothers will spend billions investing in new factories, because if we did a standard gauge railway from Lagos to through Abuja to Kano to Calabar, all of the money that they are earning, even if you are, will lead them to purchases that will lead to new investment that will generate. And we had a big debate around that. Where we are today, all the money that has been created has created little value in the Nigerian economy. We've serviced debt, and we've done the kind of projects that have put money in the pocket of a few people. That's state capture for you. And those people have spent the money in a way that has not led to economic growth.
So, I mean, we have some eggheads in the Buhari cabinet, isn't it? You have said the economy has been badly managed. You don't agree?
Let them come out and let's debate.
No, you don't agree that there are eggheads managing the economy?
It's not a matter of whether you have an egg on your head, but the logic of your position.
Do you fault the managers of this economy?
The outcome, the consequences are fundamentally flawed.
In one phrase or one sentence, how would you describe the management of the economy under Buhari government?
You cannot use one sentence to discuss the management.
To describe.
Describe.
Yeah, I mean, you can describe in one word, in one phrase, or in one sentence.
People friendly, not job creation sensitive, not economic growth oriented.
What would you say is the cause? You alluded to this CBN being overboard the other time.
Because we're in the politics of prebendal sharing. Take your share, take this person, go and buy private jet, this. Make sacrifice, you bring momentum of expenditure to a halt and go into productive activities. And then you can tax people down the line.
If I ask you, Prof, there are fundamental things that this government have done, that put their hands into.
I'm not denying that there are fundamental things that have been done.
And what they are fundamental, whether they are negative or positive, but there are projects that this government have done. We've seen rails that this government have done. We've seen the second Niger bridge that this government have done. They've done. I mean, there are things that I understand that are going on within the power sector.
Sure.
In fact, just remember, if I may land quickly, where do you think, in your own mind, that this government got it wrong, if they are wrong?
Shimon, there are projects that you do that generate wealth and can come from capital that is from people who get a benefit long term from it. Okay, let's take the Niger Bridge. A good part of money of Niger Bridge, Nigerians haven't been told the whole truth. It's come from the Abacha loot. Okay, the U.S. government even appointed consultants to superintend that construction so that Abacha loot is not badly spent. We know this. It's not money that was generated from what the government is doing. Second, into this world, infrastructure. Look at how China created infrastructure. A boom, blast in infrastructure can be done without even recourse to your budget. Turning to budgets for infrastructure of significant long-term nature is not the smartest way to provide infrastructure. Yes, and if you go to Melbourne in Australia, the G20 infrastructure hub is there, and they give advice on how you can accelerate infrastructure without going into weak budgets like we have. I have been at the G20 infrastructure hub in Melbourne. They have tried to offer advice to Nigeria infrastructure regulatory, the agency. And they are puzzled that Nigeria does not want to listen to advice that can help them create infrastructure. So I think that we need to put Nigeria first.
So let's cut a spade right now, because on this program I like for us to hit the nail on the head. I mean, who would you blame for that?
Laziness.
No, who would you blame? And I'm not saying what would you blame?
Leadership.
At the center or at the
everywhere.
State level?
I mean, the center is fantastic. When you compare them to the states, my goodness, the damage has been done to this country by dysfunctional state governments. Are you kidding me? Most of the harm has been done there. You talk about eggheads. I don't know whether it's the eggheads or the heads on the egg or whatever. But at least they do some thinking at the center. In the states, the governor just wakes up and no thinking at all. And that is where the people are. That's where they are.
If you had to have
these kinds of people,
there are people who will be asking me right now on this program, because I know my viewers are very critical. They will say, "What if Professor Utomi had the opportunity? What would you do differently?"
Actually, when we start talking about it, we've talked about simple thing. First of all, you have to bring the momentum to a halt. Government is too bloated in Nigeria. Government too bloated. We're spending all this money on recurrent expenditure. What's the result that's coming from it?
If you become president, would you be sacking people? Because how do you cut
it's much more than sacking people.
What would you do?
The more of the money is spent in just travel. Look, when General Buhari went to Onga, do you know how many civil servants left this city? Do you know how many of them? Do you know what you could do to this economy by just the spend of this government on attending one useless conference in New York? Do you know how much it costs Nigeria? These are the problems of this economy. It's a recurrent expenditure gone wild economy because people are looking for what they can get, whether it is a Ester code or this or that. They're not thinking, how can we build for our children? Which is what the issue really is. Look, economies that grow, a generation takes the pain for the gain of the next generation. We have chosen to use up our children's future in the way that we run government in Nigeria. This must stop. It must change.
Prof, I'm not a pessimist. I'm an optimist, an incurable.
I'm a double optimist. Double incurable.
I know you have been in a wilderness of optimism. But on a final note, Prof,
yeah.
where do we go from here? What is the solution? If there is one solution.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to say Peter Obi is the solution.
No, I'm not even going to go into all of that.
What is the practical solution?
Here's the solution, actually. Now you put it in my mouth.
Oh, yeah.
You put it in my mouth. Here's the solution. But let me tell you something. Let me tell you a story. I was at INSEAD in 1993. INSEAD is the European School of Business Administration in Fontainebleau in France. There was an American professor called Ingo Walter, a famous global finance professor, who was giving a class. And he showed how Nigeria's exchange rate was going. It was so funny, everybody started laughing in the class. And he said, look, you know, that country, I went there once in my life. I flew Air Nigeria, so-called Nigeria Airways, from New York to Lagos. Long story, so I don't have the time for it. But anyway, I got there. As the plane was landing, it was still taxiing. People started getting up. I wondered, was the plane on fire? Oh, they were taking their luggage. The thing moved, stopped, opened it. Everybody came out and started running. C2 started running. He got to the place, there was cubicle to pass in your passport. People were throwing the thing from the top instead of the cubicle. The thing was so completely dysfunctional. Then people came and met him. I said, your yellow card, long story, you know, funny story. Everybody just kept laughing. And these were CEOs of major companies around the world in that class. It was an AMP class in INSEAD. And but after the class, when Ingo Walter realized I was Nigerian, he came to apologize. I said, no. I mean, it's just real experience. That was your experience. He was coming to Nigeria for the first time. He was coming to the University of Lagos to help them out. And when he said to the people who were to take bribe from him, you know, just to push his passport, what's the problem? You know, what are you people doing? He said to them, he said, you know, this country, I had a roommate who was Nigerian. He was so bright, I couldn't hold a candle up to him. When this opportunity came to come to the University of Lagos to help set their curriculum or whatever it is, nobody wanted to. But because of my excitement at that relationship with this Nigerian who was my roommate, who was 10 times smarter than me, I volunteered to come. He said, what you people are doing, he's talking to those port officials, what you're doing to your country is so terrible because your country will continue to fall and fall and fall. But he ended it in a very interesting way. He said it will fall to a point where there's no further to fall. He said when they look each other in the face and say, God, what have you been doing to ourselves? That country will come up like this. Because some of the smartest people I've met in my life are Nigerians. Ingo Walter, famous professor of finance, 1993. So I don't know whether we've reached that bottom.
I think we have.
I hope so.
I mean, I pray we'll not get any lower than
this.
There are examples of where we don't want to be. Venezuela is one example.
Hey, perhaps, but that's the model we are very closely associated
perhaps
with.
Perhaps the richest in terms of natural resource that you can think of in the world.
Absolutely.
But inflation in that country is out of the roof. That we do not want to be. We do not want to be like India too.
They want to be Somalia.
That has Somalia.
Yeah.
Or even there are examples of where we don't want to be. Yes. But there are examples of where we can also be.
Absolutely.
And that we need to dream of.
And it can happen very fast.
Yes. Thank you so much, Professor Utomi. It's always a pleasure talking to
Great
you.
pleasure to talk with you.
Always times for political economics. Each time I invite you. Thank you so much indeed. It's good to see you. Happy New Year, by the way.
Same to you. Same to you.
Thank you so much. Elections are here, Prof, and I know you're thinking about your candidate, Peter Obi. I wish you and your candidate the very best. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much. I wish Nigeria the very best. That's what matters. Nigeria needs to get governed.